Hello, America. Well, yeah, I've had colds and flus and laryngitis for about the last 2 weeks. Um, yeah, I still get dry coughs late at night. Yeah, it's. I'm getting older, so shit like this affects me a little bit more than it used to, I think. But I'm mostly over it now. I was gonna get Joe Biden to do the dialogue for this, but he's really kind of a prima donna. It takes a long time to get anything out of him. And anyway, I'm feeling better now, so I'm just gonna go ahead and do this myself. Uh, yeah, this is about Elite Dangerous, and recently, well, in the last 2 or 3 or 6 months or so, I came up with this way of approaching signal sources other than by the directorate. The way I always did this, the way I was always taught to do this before, was to fly directly at a signal source, get the ETA down to 6. It had to be. You can't really do a straight approach and have it be less than 6 because you'll overshoot the thing. But you take it down to 6, and then you just hold it and fly directly at it until you get the signal to drop from Super Cruise, and then that drops you into the signal source. Okay, so that's the way I was always taught to do it, and a long time ago, I would watch the NPC pilots flying around these systems, and I'd notice that quite often they would approach things and kind of spiral it into them in a weird way, and I always wondered about that. And I said, what are they doing? How come I don't do things like that? Well, I'm still not sure what the NPCs are doing, but I did eventually figure out that, yeah, I can spiral into these signal sources. It is possible to do it. The procedure I'm following right now with the ship that I'm flying now, I'm using the cockpit braces as calibration marks to help me do this. I approach the signal source, and instead of holding the ETA at 6, I take it down to 5, and I don't go directly at it. I hold the signal source so that it overlaps the forward canopy brace and lines up right there on the left or right hand side, usually on the left hand side. And normally what happens is that as I'm holding there, the ETA will drop to 4. If it drops to 4, then I yaw to the right a little bit until the signal source symbol is overlaid with the rearward canopy support, and then hold it there for as long as the ETA reads 4. Oh, I should point out that at the beginning of this, when it drops to 5, I drop the throttle to 0. Yeah, normally with the straight approach, when the ETA gets to 6, you drop to 50% throttle right there, and that holds your ETA at 6 as long as you're doing a direct approach. If you're doing a spiral in, then you go at the signal source until the ETA reaches 5, and as soon as it hits 5, you drop the throttle to 0. That's important because you'll lose it if you don't do that. You drop it to 0, and you put the signal source symbol on the first brace. That's on this model of ship. On other models of ships, this may be different. Different models of ship can turn at different rates in Super Cruise. Some of them turn faster than others, I believe. Don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure that's the case. I'll come back to that. But on this ship that I'm flying here, what is this, the Corsair? On the Corsair, approach the signal, get the ETA down to 5, drop the throttle to 0, align the signal source with the first canopy brace. When the ETA drops to 4, yaw slightly so that the signal source symbol is aligned with the second canopy brace, and hold it there. Now that's normally about as far as it goes. Now if it drops to 3, which it may well do, then you yaw a little bit more and you allow the signal source symbol to travel back behind the second brace, just as far back as it can go without you losing sight of it. And you hold it there until it drops back to 4, which it should do. As long as you're not using any throttle, it will eventually drop back to 4, and then you take it back to the rear brace. If it drops back down to 5, you pull it back down to the first brace. If it goes to 6, you take it inside the first brace and maybe hit the throttle a little bit to get it back down to 5. You're kind of screwing up if that happens. But that's basically it. You adjust the speed at which you're approaching by yawing back and forth to hold the reticle at these positions, behind the second brace, at the second brace, at the first brace, or in the middle. Okay. Now you keep doing this. You're holding the symbol, at one of these positions depending on where the ETA is at, until the distance meter starts showing changes from showing light seconds to millions of meters. As soon as it changes to millions of meters, you take the signal source symbol and center it so that you're flying straight at it. At that point, you don't have to worry about the ETA anymore. It may drop down, but either you'll get the signal to drop pretty quick, like sooner than you normally would, or else you'll drop down to 1 million meters, and at that point you'll get the signal to drop, and you just want to drop right at that point before you overshoot. And that's the procedure. It's a little more complicated than the direct approach, but it's fun. And my theory was always that, I must be saving time doing this. This has got to take less time than the direct approach. This has got to be some huge innovation that I've achieved here. I don't know. There's probably millions of pilots that have been doing this for years. I have no way to know. But I invented this myself, regardless of who else invented it before me millions of times. And so my assumption has been up to this point that, it's got to be faster. It's got to be faster. But I was never actually finding out if it would be faster. Well, that involves this 4-letter word we call work. And, not a fan of work. Until now, I've finally bitten the bullet, and I've went ahead and I've made the sacrifice, showing my dedication to this game, and I have created some data. Well, to put it another way, I've measured 10 approaches. I've done 10 approaches and measured the time they took. Now, in order to say that, I have to set some parameters here. Okay, how do you do that? Where do you draw the lines, right? So what I've done here is, well, first of all, one of the difficulties I had with trying to test all this was, there's a lot of stuff in Super Cruise that, by stuff I mean planets, moons, large ships, anything with gravity to it, anything with a lot of mass, is going to mess with your speed in Super Cruise. So if you're flying next to a planet, it's going to slow you way the hell down. So how do you really compare one approach to another when God knows what planets are floating around at that particular time in each instance? Okay, so what I did was, for that, is I just tried to get out into a system where the signal sources all seem to be more or less remote from planets, more or less. The ones that were kind of out there at a distance, so I didn't have to worry too much about gravity. I'm sure there's variations in gravitational fields from one to the next. I don't think there's any way to avoid that, but I tried to use more remote signal sources to minimize that kind of thing. And then aside from that, doing the whole spiraling in thing and having to adjust your course finally, it's a little squirrely. If you're not paying attention, you can screw it up. If your ETA ever drops down to 2, you're going to overshoot. That's just all, at least in the Corsair. Like I was saying, other ships, I believe they seem like they can turn faster in Super Cruise. So I'm thinking there may be other ships where you can do this spiraling thing and take it down to a little bit more of an extreme. Maybe there's ships out here where you can arrange to get the ETA down to 2 and hold it in a spiral without overshooting. That would be interesting because, well, I'm getting to that. Because it turns out from these 10 tests that I did, it does appear that, I do save some time. And I've actually gone to the trouble of making a Google data sheet with my data in it, which means my 10 numbers, my time measurements. The other place I drew the line was when I say the amount of time it took, I measured the time from the point where the ETA dropped down to 8, I believe. I just arbitrarily chose 8. I started measuring time from the point where the ETA dropped down to 8, down to the point in time where I dropped from Super Cruise. From the point the ETA hits 8 to the point I drop from Super Cruise, this is the segment of time I'm measuring. Anything before that, I don't count it, because before that I may be using the Super Cruise Turbo Boost or whatever they call it, the SCB. I may be using that, because if my signal source is 40,000 light seconds away, I'm not going to sit there for 5 or 10 minutes just approaching it. I'm gonna hit SCB and get there. But from 8 seconds to drop, that's what I'm measuring, okay, for each of these runs. Right, and so the numbers, from these 10 runs anyway, it does appear that the spiral approach is somewhat faster. Specifically, it appears to be roughly what you would say 16.41% faster. On average, 16.41% faster on average. You can see the actual data there, that there is one instance. I've got the direct times. I've got the direct times here sorted from lowest time to highest time. I've got the spiral times sorted from highest time to lowest time. You can see there is one instance here where one spiral approach actually took a little over 2 seconds longer than the direct approach did. Every other spiral approach took less time. The next longest spiral time took less time than the next shortest direct time. Okay, so, and on average, the spiral time was about 17% faster than the direct approach. Well, that's something. It's not bad. I'm not gonna try to talk to you about statistical significance or margins of margins of error or any of that. I took statistics in high school. I'm not gonna relearn on that just for you. This is a ton of work for me. This is as much as I'm willing to do. This looks significant to me, and I may do some more of these just to make sure that I consistently get lower times. But yeah, this to me makes it worth it. Between it being slightly faster and the fact that while I'm spiraling, in my imagination, I suppose that I could be a little bit harder to interdict for any crafty little shit weasels out there, by which I mean actual people that might be hunting my ass, because God knows I'm old enough to stop paying attention once in a while. That's what you got to do out here in this game, because 99.99% of the time there's going to be nobody out there and you don't have to worry about it. But you do have to keep an eye on the scope. because every once in a while you're going to see a little hollowed out square out there, and anytime you see that, you got to immediately be suspicious, because there's a very definite non-zero chance there's some little shit weasel out to kill somebody for no good reason, just because that's the evil kind of motherfuckers they are. You know, I don't mean to scare you or destroy your hopes for humanity or anything like that, but that is just the kind of cutthroat, horrible world we live in. Okay, somebody's going to try to destroy your video game experience that way. So I don't really do player versus player, not because I wouldn't, but mostly because it involves a lot of coordinating with people, and I don't really want to be involved with that. It's a lot of work. I don't like getting to know people. I don't really like talking to people, to be honest with you. Ironic that my job mostly involves talking to people all day, people I don't know, but you know, I'm getting paid for that. So there you go. Yeah, so that's all this video is about. I'm just showing off the fact that I finally buckled down and did the work and proved to myself that, by golly, this is worthwhile. And it does make me a little curious. Again, are there other ships in this game that can turn faster and can maybe spiral into these signal sources faster, and maybe get into them faster than this ship can? Because this is a pretty good sized ship. I've got the what is that, the Mongolian, or what, the Mongolian, that other ship I bought a while back. It's a fun little ship to fly. I believe it can turn a little bit faster than this ship. I should try some kind of maneuver with that one, or maybe even a Viper or an Eagle or something. I don't know. But yeah, that's all I wanted to talk about. Yeah, have a good evening. Have a good day.